is a chairperson of the Board of Trustees of the Philippine Women's University System for the past decade and a half. She is one of the most outstanding Filipino women in education, an astounding senator, the first and only woman Sikatuna awardee with the rank of Dato as an international contributor to the nation's development, an Earth trustee, and a woman of wisdom. Today, as the nation stands at the threshold of the third millennium, we find our honoree actively involved in the working of an open democracy, not as a leader moving in the corridors of power, but as a doer and an achiever in common soldiery with the Filipino people, a great educator and a brilliant legislator who sees the fundamental connection between the rule of law and the task of nation building. It is consequently the pride of the Royal Institution of Singapore, upon the recommendation of its Special Screening Committee and approval of its Board of Directors, to confer upon Dr. Helena Benitez, Honorary Fellow of the Royal Institute of Educators, on the occasion of its conferment rites held at the Manila Hotel, Manila, Philippines, this 7th day of December 2013. Signed by Dr. Clark Sleman, Chairman, and Dr. Maria Guinevere G. Uy, Chief Executive Officer.
Fellows of the Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Victoria P. Badurian, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Gloria P. Baisa, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Roberto C. Dacanay, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Feliciano V. Del Mundo, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Eleanor F. Geronimo, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Gualberto A. Magdalao, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Rufo R. Mendoza, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Dennis A. Sandoval, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Roberto T. Somera, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Furagulisa S. Iboa, Fellow, Royal Institute of Accountants. Dr. Zinaida C. Jose, Royal Institute of Acupuncture. Dr. Norlito R. Gicana, Fellow, Royal Institute of Acupuncture. Dr. Maria Jocelyn D. Ilasano. Dr. Jonathan Ray Cabardo, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Garcia Discarte, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Dr. Viviano S. Fajardo, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Dr. Elizabeth Oropesa Freeman, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Dr. Joseph Wang, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine.
Dr. Ronnie A. Rollo.
Dr. Richmond C. Santillana, Fellow, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Dr. Liberty N. Solon, Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine, Fellow.
Dr. Cristeta A. Baiza, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Julio O. Castillo Jr., Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Melinda Del Mundo de Guzman, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Dominador L. Lamoa Jr., Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Mohammed I. K. Handir, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Nelson A. Layagu, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Margarita R. Saidali, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Celso Jovi E. Torot, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Danilo Valenzuela, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Administration. Dr. Dante Lubis, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Management. Dr. Maria Luisa Padla, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Business Management. Dr. Elsa Amahan Saavedra, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Chemical Engineers. Engineer Cesar Makuha Jr., Fellow of the Royal Institute of Engineers. Dr. Rogelio San Miguel, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Civil Engineers. Dr. Guillermo Bungato Jr., Fellow of the Royal Institute of Commerce.
Dr. Launi May L. Balco, Fellow, Royal Institute of Dentistry. Dr. Jose I. Abad, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Clotilde N. Arcangel, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Arturo B. Bayoko, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Marita R. Hanami, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Romeo R. C. De Guzman, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Mario B. Ganya, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Milagrina A. Gomez, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Fe A. Hidalgo, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Eden Orosa Kellerman, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Eduardo P. Lacansay, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Florentina Virgie C. Lim, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Jesus M. Miranda Jr., Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Samuel S. Molinen, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Amilu B. Reyes, Nieta, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Epifania E. Abada, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Roberto P. Torres, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Luisma P. Ureta, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Adelina P. Valdez, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Isabel A. Victorino, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Donato C. Yap, Fellow, Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Jessie Zamora, Fellow of Royal Institute of Educators. Dr. Simon Len L. Alcantara, Fellow, Royal Institute of Entrepreneurs. Dr. Gerardo A. Contard, Fellow, Royal Institute of Financial Management.
Dr. Lilibet Aragon, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Hotel Management. Patsri Dr. Herman Luping, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Lawyers. Dr. Millabel Ho, Fellow of the Royal Institute of Nurses.
Dr. Nenita Fajardo Duan, Fellow, Royal Institute of Psychologists. Dr. Reynilda G. Salandana, Fellow, Royal Institute of Psychologists. Dr. Valentino G. Ba,
Fellow of the Royal Institute of Public Administrators.
Dr. Araceli A. Lim, Fellow, Royal Institute of Scientists. Dr. Franklin C. Litawa, Fellow, Royal Institute of Security Management. Engineer Liuben C. Lim, Fellow, Royal Institute of Structural Engineers. Milagros A. Minaya,
Celia E. Fu, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Acupuncture. Mr. Flordelito Arenas, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Nadita Guerta, Senior Member of Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Maria Sylvia Ilaga, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine.
Mr. Antonio A. Mendoza,
Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Mrs. Elizabeth Orihuela, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Alternative Medicine. Robert Dipasupil, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Business Administration.
Giovanni A. Aguinay,
Jocelyn Domingo Baluso, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Educators.
Senior Member Norberto Catura, Miss Maricel Masarate de Yogo, the Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Educators. Senior Member Raju Mantian, Miss Karen Doris Gosu Samson, the Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Educators. Mr. Manolito S. San Jose, the Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Educators.
Chris Williams, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Information Technology.
Alicia N. Salamanca, Senior Member, Royal Institute of Nurses. Iselia Asengura Member, Royal Institute of Nurses. Mr. John A. Malcolm, Senior Member, Royal Institute of Public Administrators.
Ms. Therese Marie Oliver, Senior Member of the Royal Institute of Public Administrators.